So we just will sit here for 5 minutes and reflect, and then drive to Belgium in the rain, as you see. See you back in Belgium, or maybe we do something on the way. Bye. Fascination about these machines, these Studer tape recorders or other brands, Telefunken, Studer, Swiss-made precision. It's fascinating also to see the measurements and the very, very small amount of distortion that these machines produced at certain frequencies. And it's strange because the fascination, because in one way or another, if we would make these machines today, we would probably, and not probably, for sure, be able to produce machines that are even more precise than back then. But the fascination lies for a part in the fact that we know that they did make these high precision tools, these high precision machines with the tools they had available back then. That's part of the fascination. That you can have a machine that was produced back then with the so-called limitations of the time. That's of course great. And on the other hand, if you compare it to a musical instrument, every musical instrument wins or gains interest because of its imperfection. It loses interest because when the builder wants to have it too perfect, it gets a bit boring actually. And it's by the imperfection that it gets a soul. And so one could say that the imperfection, even we're talking here about a high precision tool, it has some imperfections, that is part of the fascination. And that by definition, a tape recorder like the one we have here in our back of the car is a musical instrument more than a tape recorder that would have been produced today, and maybe that's a digital recorder. You're talking about another way of recording, another way of looking to the things. So that was just a part of our discussion, heading back for Belgium. Sun is shining, we have still 3 hours to drive. Well, the sun was shining. It's getting cloudy again. But we're over the half of our way. So. With Philip Newell about the tape recorder, he clearly gave the advice that I would record the clavichord, which has a very limited dynamic range of only 20-25 dB, talking about signal noise proportion. He said I would definitely record that instrument digital, and of course that's typical for generation, I think, that worked with these machines in the past, and they proceed and they develop things that have less distortion, better signal to noise ratio, they have more dynamic range, they have more possibilities, and then inevitably comes the digital recording, which they embraced because it gave them much more as they saw it back then. They got rid of the limitations, and they had accepted of they gained what they call technical improvements, and there were technical improvements. And if I compare that with photography, my father was an amateur photographer, and as I am, and when I returned just for a hobby, just because of the fun, to make photographs with this old Bronica 6x6, he shook his head and he said, well, it's returning in time, because you embrace imperfections, you have grain of the film, and you have to develop with all these smelly fluids, and you have to go in a dark room, and it's slow processing, and what's the result? Digital is better. And I didn't agree with that, because the imperfections he saw on the picture, on the photograph, the grain, had partly to do with the old film. Film has developed, it's become better, but the grain gives substance as well to the photograph, and we today, we don't fight the grain anymore, but we embrace it, as they saw it back then, as a limitation, technical limitation. We see it as a tool of expression, and at this, compare a picture that has been developed in a dark room with grain to a digital photograph, which is clear and clean. It's a different way of expression, and maybe, perhaps, and that's my vision, you could say that a photograph with the grain, with the analog development, that photograph has more presence when hanging on the wall than a digital image. So at the end, what's the technical limitation of an instrument, of a tool, of a film, talking about photography, or a tape talking about recording? So here in the midst of rain, 30 minutes ago we were in full sunshine, now it's very much autumn-like outside in the Schwarzwald. I like it very much here. So yesterday we were at Andreas Kuhn's workshop, as I've told you, for about 7 hours, and it's actually very strange, a bit of shame that we didn't make pictures and we didn't film anything. It was one discussion, one conversation, one explanation of his how to maintenance the machines and how to work with them. So it's a pity on the one hand. On the other hand, of course, we won't be running into somebody's workshop with the camera while filming. It wouldn't be too polite, and in fact the time was not there to do that. And but also, as I've said, Andreas will come to Belgium, and he promised to think about an interview, because there is a lot to say, also about, not only about recording on tape recorders and what's the use of that today in our digital age, but as well as his history, and I think he has a story to tell. And one of the things that is so fascinating is that his father and grandfather worked as an engineer at Studer, but that he, also being an engineer physics, studied physics, he decided one moment when an American company, I think, Harman, I think, but I should look it up, decided to buy Studer. They only bought the digital, the modern department, so the analog department was sold completely. And a bit understandable that not understandable that they sold also the archive, all the designs, all the mechanical drawings. That with that you could produce any of the Studer machines that were produced in the past. So it's difficult to understand that the company is not interested in keeping that kind of legacy of history. And so Andreas, he bought actually the complete analog department, but what used to be of Studer. That would be a fascinating story that we couldn't make it to yesterday, but we will in the future. So stay tuned for that. The exclusive interview of Andreas Kuhn. Okay, so here we are, back in Belgium with this Studer A80r, the mixing console and the Dolby A system. So ready for use in the future, and it's been a long trip, 3 very exciting but very intense days, and we definitely will come back to everything and to all the details and what we can share with you tonight here in this barn. We're actually standing in the room. I haven't showed you that. Show you, just give a glimpse of what could become our studio. Here would be the control room, and over there it's hard to see. We have to make a video with light on, so that would be the recording room. Okay, the Studer devices will remain in the car. It's rather late and it's about 100 kilo, the tape recorder, so we figure out tomorrow how to get the device in the house. So we come back later in next videos about more updates and more things on the studio, on the Studer, and on everything else that's comes with that. Okay, first some sleep. See you next time. Bye.